Daniel Ricciardo is out of his car for the remainder of the season, and at first it looked like it was the end of his career. But suddenly, out of nowhere, Horner has discussed a possible return at Red Bull and has even stated Ricciardo knew he was about to receive the boot from the Spanish GP onwards. So, why would they even want him back again? It all has to do with Horner's so-called master plan. The biggest bombshell of them all? Ricciardo sent out a message to the world and his detractors around the time of the Spanish GP, and we all just didn't notice it. Next to that, Christian Horner has detailed why Daniel Ricciardo was replaced with Liam Lawson for the remainder of the 2024 F1 season, and how he successfully stopped it from happening sooner. During an appearance on the F1 Nation podcast, Horner revealed the reasoning for the unexpected in-season swap for the first time since the news was made official. While Red Bull is no stranger to making an in-season switch when necessary, but several questioned the timing of changing Ricciardo out with only 6 events remaining, rather than letting him finish the season. It all has to do with Red Bull's master plan for 2025 and beyond. In a perfect world, that letting Ricciardo see out the season would have been what we would have done, Horner said. But from a broader perspective, we need answers for the bigger picture in terms of drivers. It's the perfect opportunity to line Liam up alongside Yuki Tsunoda to see how he performs over the remaining 6 Grands Prix. Horner basically confirmed what people thought at the time of the announcement. Lawson is auditioning to be Max Verstappen's Red Bull racing teammate in 2025, replacing Sergio Perez. This goes beyond VCARB, it encompasses Red Bull Racing, Horner said. Obviously, we've got a contract with Sergio for next year, but you've always got to have an eye out in terms of what comes next. Is that going to be Liam? Or do we need to look outside the pool? Or will one of the other juniors step up in the fullness of time, whether it's Isaac Hadjar or Arvid Lindblad? Ricciardo was sent to RB as a backstop for Perez, according to Horner, but he was unable to consistently perform at a high enough level to be considered a viable substitute when Perez's form slipped early in 2024. He even disclosed that Red Bull racing advisor Helmut Marko wanted Ricciardo out after the Spanish Grand Prix in June. Something that shocked many when they first found out about is, "I think it was the lack of consistency," Horner stated when asked what it cost Ricciardo. Miami was a weekend of 2 halves. Friday and Saturday morning was fantastic, and it looked like the Daniel of old, fighting against Ferraris and outdriving the car. Then, the Saturday afternoon and Sunday were disastrous. Even around Barcelona, Helmut wanted him out of the car, and there was already a lot of pressure on him there. I did my best to buy him time. By the time we got to Montreal, it was actually dear old Jacques Villeneuve who got him properly wound up by giving him a hard time. And it definitely fired him up, because the way he drove the car that weekend, he grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and put together a very strong race weekend. So, I did say to Ricciardo, give Jacques a call every time, every Grand Prix for the rest of the year, because whatever he said, it definitely worked. Horner fiercely denied suggestions that Red Bull was overly brutal in removing Ricciardo mid-season, citing his personal support for Ricciardo as opposed to Marko's wish to promote Lawson earlier. When Horner was asked why he'd been so ruthless with Ricciardo but not with Perez, he replied, "I've done my very best to buy him as much time in the car to allow him to deliver. Otherwise, he'd have been out of the car after Barcelona. All the drivers are under pressure to deliver, but the reason why Daniel was in that car was to get himself back into a position to ultimately be there to pick up the pieces if Checo didn't deliver. The problem was, they had issues with form at varying times. Checo started the season very well, very strongly. Daniel was struggling, and then, as Checo lost form, Daniel found a bit of form, but it was never compelling enough to say, okay, we should switch the 2 drivers. Horner, like he did when Ricciardo returned to Red Bull in 2023, referred to the bad habits Ricciardo had developed while driving for McLaren, claiming he didn't recognise the post-McLaren Ricciardo. Ricciardo's ability to shed them in the Red Bull simulator in early 2023 and deliver an outstanding performance in a critical Red Bull test at Silverstone was the reason Red Bull placed him back in a AlphaTauri F1 seat last year. The fact that Ricciardo failed to achieve the same peaks on a continuous basis after being awarded the seat explains why he has now lost it. And now Liam jumps in to convince Red Bull for a seat at the big team, as Yuki Tsunoda's chances of driving for Red Bull Racing in the future are still being overlooked. He looks to be locked in the benchmark role, therefore Lawson's ability to compare favourably to him will be critical to obtaining the Red Bull seat in 2025. Last year, Liam jumped in and he beat Yuki in Singapore and Japan and was quick from the outset, and he's a tough racer. We know that. Horner described Lawson as very adaptable. Certainly the testing he's done for us in the Red Bull racing car this year has been very encouraging. We know that Yuki is a very fast driver. He can definitely extract a lap. He's not a rookie anymore. It's his 4th year of Grand Prix racing. He's got a lot of experience under his belt now. Taking him as the data point, we saw with Daniel where he compared to Yuki. It will be very interesting to see how Liam performs over the last 6 remaining races. But he isn't just driving for a Red Bull spot. At the same time, he also has to drive for the one at RB, since it's not guaranteed. In theory, if Red Bull wanted to find out the answers to more critical junior problems, it might try to create room for Hajar at RB in 2025 if Lawson was promoted or dropped. The initial intention was for Hajar to effectively mimic Lawson's 3rd driver role from this year, with significant private testing and the Red Bull reserve duty that he has now taken on. However, Red Bull's renewed admiration for the youthful talent it formerly specialised in supporting may hasten those plans. The young guys, they get in, they're hungry, and they just drive the wheels off it, Horner said. That's what we're seeing with all these juniors who are coming in at the moment. They're well prepared, they race well, they understand how to conserve the tyres well. Lawson has many weeks to prepare for his F1 return at the United States Grand Prix, something he has known about for quite some time. However, a big grid penalty for exceeding the maximum amount of engine components allowed would complicate or simplify his debut, depending on your point of view. He'll be taking an engine penalty there anyway, so he's got a bit of a soft re-entry, but of course he's going to be gauged against his teammate, Horner said. He was very quick against him last year. I think Yuki has stepped it up again this year, so it's just going to be fascinating to see how quickly he adapts, how quickly he gets on with it. Horner reiterated that the ideal 2025 scenario is that obviously Checo finds his form and rediscovers the shape he was in at the beginning of the year and nothing changes, but added that, as we know in this business, 2 weeks is a long time. And despite receiving a lot of praise for Ricciardo's work for Red Bull, especially his fantastic 2014 season, during which Horner believes Ricciardo was the best driver in F1 at the time, he even left the door open for Ricciardo to return to Red Bull if both Lawson and Perez underperform. Could he really make another return? I hope he stays around the sport, Horner remarked of Ricciardo. We've made it very clear that we want him to remain in an ambassadorial capacity with the team. Of course, one never really knows. If Liam doesn't get the job done, if Checo doesn't get the job done, we know what Daniel's capability is. But I think for him, he knows at the age he's at, he's had a great career. So many memories. The most disgusting thing ever was drinking champagne out of his sweaty boot. But he made it his own and got some incredible people to drink the champagne from his sweaty shoe. So, what do you think? Are Red Bull just grasping at straws here? Are they just trying anything they can to find someone to place next to Verstappen in 2025? A driver who can hopefully bring in constant performances so that the team can fight for the Constructors' Championship again. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.